fired at 55. That's my experience. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you might be in the same position, or maybe there could be something pending in your future. And if that's the case, I'm truly sorry, and I really hope your experience is or was better than mine, but I'm going to tell you all about mine so you can judge between the two. So if you haven't seen my previous two videos, I'm Teresa, and I started A Faith Life, a channel, just a chance just to kind of talk about God in my everyday life and in the life of my family. And right now I am filming from Hawaii, where I'm visiting my daughter. So I don't live here, but I do live in a little slice of paradise on coastal Alabama. But it's great to be here, and that's why I have the beach scenery around me. So my experience is this happened earlier this year. And I had been in this staff position for 8 years, and I had been with this same nonprofit for 7 years previously as an executive director at the local level. And you know, it was just great the way I started out with this nonprofit. I had actually gone back to school to get my master's in social work, and during that time and that experience, I was given an assignment, and I came across this nonprofit. So I spent the entire semester like studying and kind of dissecting this nonprofit, and really loved everything about it from the moment I began my research. It was just, everything in it resonated with me. It was all about kindness and dignity and respect, and using the faith-based community was very much a pivotal component in the work of this nonprofit. And they worked with families that were experiencing a crisis. So they would come along and support the family until the family was in like a better position. But oftentimes the families would stay within this organization in some way and stay connected and networked, and because it was just such a great bringing together of people, just wonderful kind of salt of the earth type of people. So I really loved my experience as the executive director. Right after I graduated with my master's, the position became open at the local affiliate. And I remember, you know, at first I was thinking, I don't know that I can do this. I'm married to a pastor who his job is 24/7, and our daughters were in middle school at the time, and so it was a pivotal time in their life. And my husband and I had always said we would never sacrifice our children for the ministry or any type of work that we're called to. So I thought, well, you know, I'm really going to pray about it. And then everyone kept forwarding me, and I just got it from all over. Like, people bombarded me, hey, this position is open. And I was always like, I love, you know, everything that organization stands for. I really like them. I know a lot about them. But we'll see, because whenever you go into that type of work, that can be 24/7, and it's a program that operates around the clock. It's 24/7. And usually, you know, at that local level, there's not a lot of staffing, so you're always on call, and I kind of know what all of that involves. So I went in for the interview, and then I was called back for a second interview, and I remember just doing a lot of praying. The board interviewed me, and I really liked all of the board of directors, and then they called me and said, hey, you know, are you considering this? You know, they had offered me the position, and I said, you know, I'm really praying about it. And they said, well, we're going to be praying with you. So they were really great, and they wanted the best thing too for that organization at the local level. So I took the position, and it was just fantastic. I learned a lot along the way, and really enjoyed my work, and really got involved in the community. And we had 22 congregations of different denominations and that were involved with us, and I really enjoyed getting to know all of them, and just really appreciated everyone we worked with. And at that time, the national office would call me and ask me to do some work for them across the nation, which I really enjoyed doing. And because I had worked closely with our board, I really was really drawn to that whole organization best practices with nonprofits on how the executive director and board of directors work together. I very much liked all of that. And also funding. Funding is really challenging in the nonprofit field. And I had to learn quickly about funding and how that works and how you can go through, you know, the rough patches and that type of thing. But all of it was good. And again, I learned so much during those years. And so I worked at the national level and really enjoyed the work that I did for them. So my husband was moved by the bishop of our denomination about just not very far geographically, but it put us in another state. And there was a parsonage at the congregation he would be serving, and the bishop wanted him to live at that congregation. So that kind of presented us a dilemma with my job. And so for 3 years I actually commuted, and by then my youngest daughter had graduated from high school, because I was with them for a total of 7 years, and I commuted as long as I could. And it was so funny, my husband and I would text each other saying, oh, where are we gonna be tonight? You know, it felt like we had this nice little romance going, right? Like, your place or mine tonight, where are we gonna be? So we made it work as long as we could, but I knew I needed to make a move, and we needed to be under the same roof every night. And so I did that, and then a position became open at the national level, and it was then the president of the nonprofit that later that position was named as the CEO soon after I came on board as staff, and offered me a position as a regional director. And it was a great time in my life, because again, my youngest daughter was now in college, and I was at a position where I could travel all the time, and that was just great. I really enjoyed going different places and meeting different people, and it was all just one big adventure. I really enjoyed it. And so I did that, and during that time, who was now the CEO of that organization had left that position, and another CEO came on board and was hired by the national board of directors. And immediately there was a different tone to the organization, and it was just very different from the previous CEO, because their values were just very much different. And so I could see right away that that there was some conflict with my personal values, and now the new values that the national organization was taking on under new leadership. And there was just a different environment there that I wasn't used to, and several others weren't used to. So the wonderful environment that we knew of, you know, how everyone was treated just with such love and compassion and dignity, was fading. And so I knew that there was a conflict taking place, and I did start to look for, this might not be where I want to be, you know, for a number of years like I thought. And during that time, my husband, though, had retired from the ministry, and his whole retirement was based on me working full-time for another 2 years. And so as the new CEO began to implement, you know, changes that again were very different, I just more and more, almost on a weekly basis, found myself in a very uncomfortable position with things that just were such a direct contrast to me and my values. And I just could not go along and perpetuate a lie or something that wasn't true, and to tell others anything that just wasn't the truth. I just could not go along with. And so I knew when I took a stance against my supervisor that I would not go against something that wasn't truthful, and I would not take any action that was false by nature, that I had set things in motion maybe for there to be a change with my position. And I understood that when I took that stance, but I very much felt like I needed to do the right thing. And I definitely believe that what you do comes full circle. And whenever you do the right thing, even though it may take time, in the end, it will be a good thing, even though you might have to go through rough patches. So earlier this year, my family took a vacation. I took some PTO time, and we had a wonderful vacation together, and I came back on a Thursday and everything was like normal on that Thursday and that Friday, and you know, everything was just like normal. And then Monday morning I went in for a regular, just little quick meeting that I have every Monday with my supervisor. And I noticed going into the meeting, this was a Zoom meeting, that the HR person, representative, who is also our admin person, wore many hats, was there. And sometimes the meetings overlap. And so I immediately said, oh, well, I may be here, you know, too early. Would you like for me to come back? And my supervisor said, no, you know, this person is supposed to be here. So I knew at that time, that was just my first signal that, okay, this is different. Something different is happening today. And so at that time, they went into this, my supervisor read a spill, just read this statement like I was some stranger that was new, that she had never known or worked with. And I found out during this statement that this was my last day of employment, that this was my last day of being paid, even though like the pay period, this was a Monday and the pay period ran through Friday. They did not even choose, you know, to do that, and they were shutting down my laptop during that meeting. And I was asked to have no communication with anyone, even my colleagues that I had worked with, some for over 15 years total. I could have no communication with them. And they said that they would send me a legal document, and they advised that before I sign it, that I seek legal consultation before signing this document. And that was the end of the meeting. And it was just like almost like an out-of-body experience. Like I guess I just left the meeting feeling like I was nothing and no one. I was just treated like I was last week's trash and thrown out. And like they had no relationship. And even the HR person I had worked with for several years. And there was nothing personal. There was no thank you for anything or any recognition of my years and the work that I had contributed through the years. So that was just a hard pill to swallow, and no closure. I think just not being left with closure was really difficult, because as a social worker, we know that closure is so important to everyone. So not even being given that dignity was really, really difficult. So that was my experience, and my husband and I just had to regroup quickly. And I will say my husband is my biggest cheerleader. He totally believes in me, and believed that, you know, I could make a restart and reinvent myself in whatever way I needed to at that point. We've been married for 33 years. Coming up in just a few months, we'll celebrate that. And that's one of the reasons why I just love that about him. He was very supportive, even though financially we did not know what we were going to do. We really had to regroup and really had to rely on faith. But I will say, as being a person of faith, for most all of my life, is I really know who has me. God has me. I know He's going to take care of me. He is my source. I did not look to this nonprofit to be my source. God is my source, and I knew He would provide for me. And I knew I'd done the right thing, that I would never just go along with false statements and such. I know, you know, the difference between right and wrong, and I'm always going to go with the side of right on things. So God has sustained us, and I just had to pivot quickly. And I decided, when I looked at everything else that was out there, that I just wanted to start my own company. So that's what I've done. Even though it's really hard, if any of you have ever been through this experience, you know, to start and get started and have some profit, because you put a lot of money out before you see any coming in. But I had been through the experience running a nonprofit where I knew that I could figure this out. And so I'm doing that. So if you're in the same position and you're at the age that I am, 56 now, but 55, I had a birthday right shortly after all this happened. I hope that you've had a better experience, that your experience wasn't quite as devastating as mine, just in the impersonal nature I was treated with. maybe there was a little more kindness shown to you, and maybe you were shown with a little more dignity than I was. I really hope that for you. But if you weren't, and if you're struggling and you just don't know what to do, and maybe if you're watching this because it's a faith-based channel, that you can rely on God, and I know He'll be there for you. So if you're going through something like that, I would love for you to share. If you've been through anything like that, I would appreciate anything in the comments, because I'm still there. It hasn't been too far distant time for me, but I'm in a better place. And again, I do have a supportive family around me. And my daughters, by the way, my 2 adult daughters, were so supportive. They were so glad that I was out. They could just see the choke that it had on me as I was put in more and more positions that I just wasn't comfortable with morally and ethically. So they were just so relieved, even as they acknowledged that it was going to be hard, to restart, and they knew that was going to be a tough road ahead of me, but they were very glad that I was in a different position. So I just want to offer any support that I can to you if you're in a difficult position that's similar, and I would really appreciate any comments. And I would love for you to subscribe and follow this channel, because if you saw the first video, this is a new start. This is only my 3rd video in this, and I would love to have you follow my YouTube journal. So I'll catch you later. Bye. I wanted to add just a few other things that I left out of the first recording. The first one is that I have never been fired before. I have worked since I was a teenager, oftentimes more than one job at once. And I've always been promoted and asked to do more at every employment I've had, and including graduate school. Like I went to teach for the university after receiving my master's. My professors wanted to know if I would be open to that. And that was a great experience. And number 2, I was not given a reason for the firing. When I asked, I was just told that they were restructuring, which I understand that, because whenever a new leader takes place, they should be able to put their own team together. But I still think if you're going to do that, you can treat someone like a human. And it was the way that they did it, the nature and how they chose to go about it, just so disrespectful. And number 3 is that when they took my laptop down, everything ended with that. All of my communication, everything that I had, like even my information with the benefits and passwords and stuff, that were related to that employment, I did not have access to. And of course, my benefits were ending at the end of the month, and this was like mid-month when this happened. And I'm sure that if they could have, I'm sure that they had already paid for the benefits, or they would have I'm sure if they had a choice to end it that day, because that was just the nature and the way that they wanted to handle things. And I especially thought that this was bad for an agency that had just prided itself for decades on being compassionate and empathetic and kind and that type of thing. It was just so ironic that they could treat someone the way, that I experienced. So I think that was, really troubling in and of itself. So just wanted to add those things. I'll catch you later. Bye.